Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope that everybody is doing well this morning. Welcome back to Get Your Roll On. I am Captain Kirk, and we are here yet again, building more scenes and worlds in Foundry VTT for the upcoming D&D campaign that will be on this channel. Talking through the processes as we go through things, so that way, if you feel like you want to get into the very nitty-gritty, in-depth nature of really deep diving into all the interactive qualities that you can give your scenes in Foundry, hopefully some of what I'm doing here can help provide a touch base for that. But more than anything, I am just happy to be here with you guys and happy to be able to hang out. So we are going to wander on over to the Foundry Discord servers, and we're going to drop a link to the stream, and then we are going to get rocking and rolling. But yeah, I hope everybody is doing well, whether you are hearing these words now live or whether you are hearing them recorded later on. I hope that you are having a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time these words may find you. And there's our link. So we're going to kick some tunes on. And, we're just going to get into our process here. So all right. I've been feeling a little more rocked out lately, so slight switch up from the normal piano jazz and lo-fi that I typically have going. If people want me to put on something more chill, if you join in on the stream, by all means, feel free to let me know. I'm really good with either. I've had so part of the reason why I've actually kind of been jamming more lately. So I was actually in I was in some punk, ska, and metal bands for a long time. Was also in several different cover bands, things like classic rock and that sort of stuff. And so there's a lot of music in the sort of rock side of the world that are the songs that aggressive styles of music just tend to be the ones that I resonate with the most. Aggressive or high energy. Not necessarily just aggressive. Certainly sometimes aggressive, but there also tend to be the styles of music that, because I was the vocalist and a guitar player in pretty much all of those bands. And so they also tend to be the songs that I, have learned all the lyrics to and so they're a lot of them have just kind of become almost like sing-along songs for me. Or they're songs that I know well enough that I can perform them and that sort of thing. And I've had this very interesting idea. Well, I think very interesting. Other people might not think the same thing, but the next character that I want to play in an actual D&D game, should the time arise where I actually get the opportunity to be a player and not just a DM, is a bard, but a much more sort of rocked out bard, not like the heavy metal bard trope sort of deal, but I have a very fun character idea. My hope, I have a good friend, Red Dog, 666 Red Dog. She is a streamer here on Twitch, so you should go check out her channel as well at some point. Give her a follow. She's an awesome lady. Does a lot of different D&D games over there, usually as a player, but she has some really awesome DM friends and things like that. But she is actually working on maybe not her first campaign setting, I don't actually know, but she is working on a really cool campaign setting, and oh my god, I wish. So it's like coming in here in Foundry and like doing all this nitty gritty, like building maps and things of that nature. Like that piece is so, I guess, easy for me, right? But the thing that is like, I am outside of musically or like from a writing aspect or things like that, I am not artistically gifted whatsoever. Like I can't draw, paint. I have done a small amount of sculpting in my life. I am passable. Well, that's probably the best way to put it, right? But yeah, I am passable at it. And that's the best way to put that. But yeah, I mean, she is actually like from scratch doing her entire world map and everything. And oh my God. I mean, her world map is just absolutely gorgeous. I'm so jealous, and also like so sounds weird to say that I'm like proud. This is a friend. It's not like it's my kid or something like that. But oh my God, she's doing such a good job. I cannot wait until she's done and she feels like she's ready to actually like run. I think it will be her first campaign that she's gonna run. I'm really excited for her for that. And Not Milk. Yeah, you jamming along with the tunes. Awesome. What's going on, Not Milk? Welcome to the channel. I hope that you are doing well today. We're just, you know, chatting, hanging out, and I am working on scenes in Foundry for an upcoming D&D campaign that will be live streamed on this channel in the not too terribly distant future. I am a little bit neurotic when it comes to my like campaign and scene prep, so I am probably still about a month to 2 months out before I'm actually ready to fully like go, okay, I have everything built out enough that I'm ready for player recruitment and character creation, and you know, we'll do a session 0 that'll be offline and all that sort of jazz before we actually get into streaming here on the channel. But yeah, I was talking about Red 666 Red Dog, a good friend of mine, also a streamer. She's got this insanely gorgeous map that she's making for her own campaign world. I believe the first campaign world she's ever designed, and I believe that this will be the first D&D campaign that she's ever run. And I mean, oh, dude, it's just... that world map is chef's kiss. She, much like myself, is very obsessive about details, right? And so she's spending a lot of time to make sure that the world map is just so in the way that she wants it. But I'm really excited for her to be running her first campaign in the, you know, probably sometime within the next 6 months-ish. And, but in any case, I was talking about part of the reason why I've been feeling, a little more of these kinds of jammies lately, is because I have an idea for, I'm hoping that I will actually get to participate in that campaign when she runs it. And I have an idea for a bard character. Even though I've been a musician, my whole life, I have actually never once played a bard in D&D. And so this will actually be my first bard character. And I want to So in all the bands and things like that I was in throughout my life, I was always the vocalist and usually the rhythm guitarist. But I definitely want to have a bit of vocal performance involved. All right, and then okay, cool. Right. And so now what I'm doing is, for anybody who's watching at this point, we kind of tested it a little bit yesterday. The functionality isn't working exactly the way that it did in version 12 of Foundry, unfortunately. However, it still doesn't feel like there's going to be a better it doesn't feel like there's going to be a better option to provide the appropriate type of occlusion and things like that for our scenes, other than this, because there are certain pieces of these areas that I want to block line of sight to others and things of that nature. And so it isn't going to be perfect, right? But it's going to get us pretty close to what I'm looking for. Really and truthfully, I probably should have brought this in a little more now that I'm thinking about it. Along some of these edges, I absolutely should have done that. The question is now, do I go back and blow those up and redo them? Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm going to, unfortunately. I'm actually going to go ahead and redo the ones over here too, because now that I know how it's working, and actually I should have just thought of this like right at the beginning. But that's all right. Things like this, Foundry, the beauty of Foundry, the beauty of, actually kind of the beauty of all D&D campaigns in general, and especially the things that we design and create for them, right, is that their beauty is a bit like a mandala, in that part of the beauty is in its impermanence, right? You know, at the end of the day, everything that we do to design for all of our campaigns as DMs and all of that sort of stuff, I mean, will be experienced by our players for such a finite amount of time comparatively to... Oh, well, thank you for the 3-day watch streak, Dex. What's going on, bro? One of the things that I will be doing in the not too terribly distant future is actually setting up all the rewards that people can have, you know, for using their streak points and everything like that. You know, forgive me, I'm incredibly lucky that I was able to reach affiliate as quickly as I was. You know, where this is week 9 of the channel and we actually already... Home laptop to work on my project. Okay. What kind of project is it? Let's see. It's a school project for my finals. I need to develop a website or an app that helps a certain stuff. Oh, okay, I gotcha. So what, you said you're trying to install the programs to be able to do so. Is there a specific, like, language or, like, coding program that you're having to utilize to like, build those out? Yeah, needed to download node.js, get Splite for the tables, also node modules. Gotcha, gotcha. The way you express that sounds like you're having trouble doing so, or just that's what you're working on. Is it like a question of credentials, like making sure that your credentials are properly set up to download everything on your home laptop versus like what you would use for school? Uh, I have low-key don't remember how I installed this stuff on the school computer. Now I'm having trouble, so at least in somewhat working state. Ah, gotcha. I get you. Well, hopefully I have definitely done that same thing before, because it's like, you know, with so many things, it's like once you get all your tools set up, it's like, you know, then you're just using it every day and you forget how you actually set up all the tools in the first place, because like that's the thing you do, you know, once in a blue moon compared to like actually utilizing all the tools every day. So I get you. I was in telecommunications for a big portion of my life, and in operations, and even though it wasn't my dedicated role there, I definitely handled a lot of the IT for my department, mostly because of turnaround times, for getting things fixed versus what the turnaround times were if we actually sent it off to our actual IT department. Um, and so, not exactly the same thing that you're working on by any means, but I get what you mean about, like, you know, it was always a challenge anytime you had to go through and like reset up the tools on somebody's like station or something like that, because that was something you did so infrequently comparatively to, you know, utilizing all the tools that they would use for everyday day-to-day operations. Well, hopefully you are able to get those set back up, and I'll be interested to hear about the app or the website you decide to create for your project. All right. Yeah, that is actually how I want those walls set up. Because now that we've created a little bit of that buffer zone, essentially that's at least going to allow for the outer edge of this to always be visible, even from the lower area, and it'll also, like, any tokens that come close enough to the edge, right, are then going to be visible by people below, which is the intent of that situation. Or the intent of why I'm doing this. Um, It's basically a system that helps dormitories to record student patterns, addresses, rooms info. Also helps if a student wants to move to a different room. Basically, that's it. Oh, well, that's cool. I mean, I'm not going to lie. That kind of sounds like your school outsourcing its own, like, IT solutions to its student body, but, you know, that's a useful program for a situation like that, because, I mean, a program like that could also be utilized with certain functionalities at something like an apartment complex too, actually. You know, tracking tenant records and things of that nature. So surprisingly, it was my idea. Oh, okay. Well, hey, there you go. Well, good on you then. I mean, that sounds like a valuable tool. I mean, if I were your professor, I'd be like, yeah, yeah, do that. That sounds great. Yeah, it started out as an apartment recorder, but then we dumb it down to dormitories only. Okay, yeah. Okay. But I mean, that's from a records keeping and tracking standpoint. I mean, that just sounds like um even though it's, you're saying that's all it does. I mean, that sounds like, from a knowledge standpoint of like understanding how to build a program like that, that just sounds like it has a lot of translatable skill applications to a lot of other useful, especially like any type of, tracking or data recording, like programs, things of that nature. Because, I mean, even though you're specifically talking about doing one for like housing, right? Apartments, dormitories, things like that. I mean, you're really not that far off from being able to do something not too dissimilar, or understanding the ways one would need to do something not too dissimilar to do, like, inventory tracking for supply chain management and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's cool, man. Long story short, I can see how something like that is valuable skills and provides you with a lot of translatable skills for other types of programming avenues. Honestly, I wish I could take credit. This stuff is made by AI, since my teacher pushed it on us to the point he was annoying us till we started using it. Oh man, that sucks. So what are you using, like um so is what you're using, God, there's that website that I keep seeing like a billion, it's like base 44 or whatever. I mean, I know you're probably not using like that exactly. But is it some of the programs you're using not too dissimilar to that? Where it's essentially you're describing all the functionality that you need to something, and then it's creating the code piece of it for you. An AI teacher is recommended. It's called Klein. Damn, I hate how fast it is. Oh, okay. You know, so here's my, I'll be honest, when it comes to to aspects like this, I mean, there is the element of like humans losing jobs and things like that to AI, right? That like kind of comes into the thought process when it comes into stuff like that. And that sucks that you are being forced to utilize that, basically. You know, or essentially you're being, I mean, I can't even say peer pressured. You're being pressured by a superior, essentially, to utilize this. You're being coerced. Let's put it that way. However, I guess the thing that I find extra unfortunate about it is it's like, if you just take the human element out of it, right, and the machines displacing human jobs, it almost feels like we're progressing towards this like Warhammer 40K-esque future where it's like, because if we start training people, like for example, in your situation, if we start training people to use the AI tool to create the program for us, then we lose the ability to create the program ourselves. And therefore, when things in the program break, we have no idea how to go back in and fix them. And so the only thing that we have to do is essentially just get it to create a new program for us that we utilize until it breaks, and then a new program until it breaks. And so it's just like derivative technology on top of derivative technology on top of derivative technology until what actually ends up happening in the end is you start going backwards, is like the thing that I see in my head. And I'm just like, wow, we real talk about to become the Imperium. Where we barely even understand our own technology. And we start talking about praying to the machine spirit to give us a favorable outcome. Oh God, the Warhammer, not the Warhammer 40K. Yeah, dude, for real though. Like, I mean, a little bit of that statement is hyperbolic, right? But it's like, you can also kind of see what I mean. Like at the same time, probably. And I find that, I don't know, it's just, it's, you know, once upon a time, a common fudge. Yeah, dude, for real. Once upon a time, a common curse was, may you live in interesting times. And, I feel like we are definitely living in interesting times. I mean, but so much about like what, God, it's just so crazy. There's so much dichotomy to everything, right? Because it's like, we live in this world where now all this AI is coming up and it's, you know, it's going to, like, that's the sad part, is it's like we can fight and we can rail against it all we want, and I'm going to be there fighting and railing against it for as long as I continue to draw breath. Right? Or at least certain aspects of it. There are certain aspects of it that I feel like are fine for personal use and things of that nature, but when it comes to displacing humans and that sort of stuff, that's the piece that I can't get, like, I refuse to get on board with. Companies are just looking at bottom lines though, and but you know, it's like at that same time, we now also live in a world like, so, you know, keep in mind, you have to remember, I'm old, right? So the joke that I like to make is I'm so old that I remember when the song We're Gonna Party Like It's 1999 was about the future. But so it's like, you know, there was a time in which this interaction that like we're having right now, like me sitting here and building this map and you being able to like communicate with me. Yep. I know. I'm about to be on oxygen. Call life support. I'm days away from death's door. By the way, Methuselah called to say hello. For those not familiar, that's a joke about a biblical reference. Methuselah supposedly being the oldest human in the world. Anyway. However, an interaction like this, I grew up in the day and age where an interaction like this could never happen. Like, I couldn't be sitting here working on this digital representation of a scene that I'm going to create for, a D&D game that is then going to, like, while somebody else is able to watch that happen in real time, and we can have a conversation where it's like, you can send me messages in chat and I can immediately see them and talk like that. All of that didn't exist. If I wanted to talk to you when I was growing up, I had to call you on a phone with a cord attached to a wall, so it's like, there's so many things about like today's day and age that are beautiful and really, really cool. But along with it comes the unfortunateness of, like, we're also slowly spiraling towards the future of Warhammer 40K. So it's the juxtaposition of all of the wonderful and simultaneously awful things that technology creates for us. I just find very interesting. Maybe not interesting. I don't know what the term that I'm truly looking for with that is, but it's definitely strange. For sure. Okay, so I've simultaneously just realized as I'm sitting here and I'm doing all these walls that these walls are going to create the sight lines that I want. But simultaneously, I actually need to put a wall around the edge. Otherwise, tokens are going to be able to move between those different levels in a way that I don't want them to. Which means that I actually kind of have to do a double wall on all of these, like, edges with an invisible wall and the actual wall, the regular wall creating the sight occlusion, and then the invisible wall creating the block for the movement. My God, there's got to be a better way to do this, Foundry. Okay. I'm going to sit here and play around in... why did you have to change this in V13? Because this is... for those who weren't here for it yesterday, or that haven't watched yesterday's, like, VOD recording, at the end, we did walls where we traced right around the edge and set it at the appropriate height for this, which does block vision, but the issue that it creates is that it used to, in older versions of Foundry, if I had a token on the opposite side of that wall whose height was higher than that wall, they would still be able to be seen past the fog of war. Like, the fog of war would still be there, not showing that piece of the map. But if I had, let's say, like a 6 foot tall representation, like token here, and I had a token down here, even though they're below this wall and they wouldn't be able to see the actual map portion, they would be able to see that token over the fog of war. Well, with V13, and I don't know what changed in this, and that's why I'm like, there's got to be some setting that makes this whole thing easier. In V13, you can see the representation of the token's height, and it will let you, like, select them, which means that it is registering that that token should be within the other token's line of sight and vision, but it still leaves the token under the fog of war. And I'm just wondering, like, I'm almost wondering if there's some, like, global setting for the way fog of war is handled. What is this telling me about levels? This is acting like there's an issue with levels. Multi-level fog folder, exact token visibility. Yeah, I want that. Okay, it's gonna reload my scene. Yeah. Which means I need to reopen levels. And then I'm here on the upper level. Yeah, see, it's still blocked by the fog of war. Is there something in the token settings? Is that just a token setting that I need to set? Okay, vision is enabled. Vision, basic vision. Occlusion rate. Okay, when this token is below a tile that uses radial occlusion, this value controls the size of the hole that is cut in the tile out. Okay, well, I don't need that. Sort. Oh, this is the sort stack. And this will only come into play if tokens are literally sitting on top of each other. Okay, so then the last thing I'm going to check is there something in the wall settings that will allow this to happen? Because, like, there's got to be a way to make this work the way that it used to. At least is the thing that I'm going to tell myself till proven otherwise. Okay, restriction direction. Yeah, no, that's just, we can make it a one-way wall. We don't want to do that. Actually, I don't need to work with 22 walls. Just give me one, because I'll get more detail there. I mean, the only other thing that I know to do is set, like, a weird proximity threshold, where it's like... But then it's all or nothing. Ugh... Okay, well, let me see... Actually, I'm gonna try this very quickly. Let's... Just gonna set all of these heights to 55. Boom, apply. We're gonna go back to our token. We're gonna see if that... No, okay, so still being blocked by the fog of war, right? Alright. So we know that that doesn't do what we want it to do. I'm going to try essentially turning these into... Because there's different... Terrain walls are weird. They do... Right. So they're normally a limited. So let's set all these to limited. And let's see what we get there. Boom. And let's see... Okay, so now we can see the token. Is there a point at which we can move this back to that we don't see the token anymore? No. See, so that's... Oh. Because... Nah. I just need to design all my D&D games in Unreal Engine 5. I think this is what I'm learning. No, I'm just kidding. So essentially... For those who might be watching along, what I'm trying to do is create a situation where this, at least like a wall here, will at least block vision, like at the appropriate angles that a wall is supposed to. Oh, okay. Well, no, but I don't have anything the appropriate shape. Sorry, so like the thing that I just realized is I could essentially do like a weird, floor ceiling thing like I've been doing for all these huts for this. Okay, so I think I just have to... Well, so since I have a couple D&D players here, I'll poll the audience. What do you think would be... Because from my standpoint, I don't know what I feel like as a player would be more annoying. Like, not truly being able to see the token and only being able to see the, like, feet measurement, right? Because essentially, if I turn this back into a normal wall... levels. No. I don't want levels. I want walls. I think I was already on it. Okay, no. Right, so I'll just do this. We'll just turn this back into a... Whoop. Not none. Normal. 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 Apply. Right, so the fact... So I know that this seems weird, right? But it's like the fact that I can mouse over this token while I have this token selected and actually see it and have it show up like that means that it's within this token's line of sight, which means that this wall's height versus this token's height versus this, because eventually if I were to move this, in theory, if I move this far enough back, does it still not? Oh, no, because now it's seeing under the wall. No, it can't be seeing under the wall. Yeah. Okay. I think I just... And this is the unfortunate nature of, like, there are some things that are just never going to fully test properly when you are the DM and you're working in Foundry, because your DM vision, air quotes, it makes it sound like it's some superpower. My DM vision is just going to allow you to see things that you otherwise would not have been able to. All right. So I think the truth is that the thing that is gonna actually, like, represent all of this the best is if I just... I don't know where this weird wall segment went. That just disappeared into the ether. Cool. Neat. I think I do need to just put it along the edges. And so sometimes for myself, it just comes down to trial and error and deciding, like, unfortunately, Foundry will not let you do absolutely everything that you want to do. Or at least, I don't know. If somebody knows how to create the effect that I am trying to trying to create, please, by all means, feel free to share that down in the comments below. I did go onto the Foundry Discord servers last night to try to find a solution to this as well, and nobody really seemed to. So this is things that tell me that maybe sometimes I'm too ambitious with what I try to do in Foundry. when I go to the Foundry Discord server to ask for like assistance on how do I do this thing, and everybody's like, crickets. Well, we've never tried to do that. Oh, well. Oh, I'm the only one? Okay. Well, alrighty. So yeah. And this is also like, you know, kind of goes back to, this is one of those moments where I just have to swallow that good enough is good enough. You know, I'm not going to get the actual perfect representation. Sadly, I'm a player. I have no idea how Foundry works on the DM side. Only edited a few items for funsies. Yeah, for sure. No worries, no worries. I mean, no, but to be fair, like I said, nobody in the Foundry Discord server knew how to do what I was trying to do either. So it's all good. Which, to me, I mean, that also is just that thing that I kind of need to swallow, that, you know what? This just isn't going to do what I want it to do. But good enough is good enough. And so we're going to... Actually, how far does the undo tool go? Because now I'm like thinking about this. I'm so indecisive when it comes to some of this stuff. My God. Could you just not? Like me talking to me, could I just not? Okay, cool. We've got all those walls back. I think I am gonna do the double layer invisible wall, regular wall, because I really do want a band here where it's like the token is at least partially visible if they're all the way at the edge. Yep. All right. Yeah. Apply. Ta-da. All right, so those are all normal walls. Again, I don't know what happened to this wall segment over here that just decided to yeet itself into the abyss. And now we'll go through and we will draw our invisible walls. Nope. There we go. And these ones we want to actually be pretty lined up with the outer edge. Doesn't need to be perfect. I say as I'm doing this insane task of drawing 2 layers of walls so that I can have visible edges of things, but not have movement in any case. Oh, well, hello, strange wall segment that I just, like, left in the middle of nowhere here. Okay, well, goodbye. Alright. And then this is it. We're gonna live with this. It's not perfect, but we're gonna live with it. Alright. So now I can still see a portion of the edge, but it will stop me from being able to move past that edge. Okay. Whoa. No, sir. Do not want to do that. Thank you. I just want to draw a wall here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And then I think that this is going to... I feel like every time I do another multi-level scene, it always takes me like a minute to remember all the weird ways that like the, you know, faux 3D canvas that's kind of created by all this happens. There we go. Okay. And then back over here to do the same. go. There we go. We'll do that. Let's see here. Then I need this outer layer. Conquer it all. Ugh, did I really do that? Oh, God. Okay. Oh, yeah, yo. Oh, no, that is where, for the most part, that's where I want that. That's fine. The funniest part of all this is I'm putting all these walls in, and actually at the height that most people will be at when they're on this level of the map, they will actually never interact with half of these walls anyways. All of these are just for such an outside case scenario that it's like, why am I even doing this to myself? But I don't know. I just like thoroughness. Yeah. I'm not sure what it is that like what is it that drives people to like want to achieve perfection in certain, you know, avenues and like not care in others, right? Just an interesting human quality that sometimes I wonder about, because it's like with something like this, with my D&D games, like, oh man, I just every single time I run a D&D game, a campaign, or whatever, I do everything that I can to strive for like as much perfection in every aspect of it as absolutely possible. But it's like there are just so many things in life where I'm just like, oh yeah, no, it's not that big a deal. Like, you know, just good enough is good enough, like in so many different aspects. But for some reason in my head, it's like, no, like this is the thing. Like, I don't know what, you know, and I feel like everybody has those things, right? Everybody has those, like that one thing or those like couple things where at some point they decided that the rock of perfection they were going to die on was this one. And for some people that might be like playing guitar, or for some people that might be, you know, playing a sport, things of that nature, like, you know. And then, you know, for some of us, it's running games in made-up worlds in people's heads, you know? I say that jokingly. I absolutely love D&D, and I am no way, shape, or form trying to belittle it, but it is just, I do find it sometimes funny that of all of the avenues of life that my brain has decided to attach itself to and go, no, everything you do for this must be perfect, or at least creates the like, and I say this like literally, creates the need to strive for perfection. it's so interesting that like this was it, and it's like I don't even really remember when it started. That like I think eventually, like, I think maybe I've just DM'd for so long that, like, after a certain point, it's like, well, if you're not continuing to get better at doing this when you do it, what's the point of even doing it, you know? And because I started DMing D&D back in 2nd edition when I was 12. Now, none of those games were good. I was 12. But I was still doing it back then, right? And, it's like... So I'm on my, like, 50th or whatever D&D campaign that I've ever run by the time I'm 20-something. Because, I mean, let's face it, when I was a kid and I was 12, none of the campaigns that we were running back then lasted very longer, and literally everything I was doing back then was homebrew because we were playing in 2nd edition, and if you didn't have... oh my god, the most insane collection of like source books and things like that. Like the amount of options that were provided to you in 2nd edition D&D were so minimal that it's, oh dude, we were making up new classes and species, and I mean, I learned actually. This is a funny story. I actually taught myself HTML at one point in time in my life when I was in middle school by sitting there, because now a lot of it's a lot more locked down. You can still see it for the most part. It's a lot less straightforward than it used to be, right? Because now you have like CCS or CSS, and Java and everything like that going into programming for websites. Like so many different languages go into programming websites nowadays, whereas like back in my day, it was all just HTML at the time, and so I literally taught myself HTML by just sitting there and opening up the source code window because I figured out that was a window that I could open in, I mean, at the time, Internet Explorer, because I mean, Chrome didn't even exist. Google was barely even a thing at this point, right? Which is like crazy to think about a world without Google. But like, I remember when Google was the new, like, search engine that wasn't as annoying as Yahoo or, oh god, what were the other ones, like Buena Vista and GoDaddy. I mean, like, so many crazy search engines. The internet is just such a wild place. But in any case, I sat there and I learned how to write HTML. Yeah, no, dude, I'm telling you, I'm old, bro. I turn 40 tomorrow. I mean, I'm not sad about it. Like, whatever. Getting old is just getting old. Like, that's just part of humanity. I've actually never, like, getting old has never really bothered me. Yep, 40. I am 40 tomorrow, my guy. Yeah. I know. I'm like the crypt keeper. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dex. I appreciate you. But yeah, so it's like, I remember being in middle school and, like, being able to open up the browser source code, right? But damn. Is 40 unfathomable? Yeah, because if memory serves, you're early 20s, right, Dex? Something like that? I mean, you don't have to answer that if you don't want to, if that makes you uncomfortable. I'm sorry, I probably should not have just, like, volunteered that information on stream. I just felt like I remembered that. This year I turned 20. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I knew you were much, much younger, than myself, at least. Okay, cool, cool. All right. Um, I'm still getting used to that, like, technically, any conversation that I have with someone here is broadcast to the entire internet if someone so wanted it to be so. And so, yeah, I'm not trying to dox people's age and things like that if they don't care about it. But yeah, I knew you were younger than myself. And actually, most of the people that I know, it's so weird. I've just, throughout my entire life, all of my friends, all of the people that I regularly interact with are either significantly younger or significantly older than myself. Like, if I actually, like, think about the people that are my good friends, I think I only have like maybe one or two friends that are actually the same age as me, and then everybody else is like at least 5 years on one side or the other. And I have lots of friends that are older, like, I have lots of friends that are in their like 60s and even a few in their like 70s and stuff. And then I have lots of friends that are 20s. Just is what it is. But in any case, getting back to stories about things that I've experienced because I'm Methuselah, or because I'm the Crypt Keeper. So I remember, like I said, I used the source window on on my Internet Explorer because, like I said, it was your choices were that or AOL for like navigate. Oh no, what was the other one? Netscape was the thing that no longer exists. That was the thing once. You can look that up. But yeah, I would use the source window, and I taught myself HTML originally so that I could create a website that hosted my own online Dragon Ball Z RPG of my own design. I wonder if that website still exists somewhere out there on the internet. Now I just morbid curiosity. I have to know. I'm trying to see if it's here. In any case, no, it doesn't look like it exists anymore. Okay. I remember, I think the last time I looked for it was, God, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago. Something like that. And it did still exist at that time. But yeah, so I learned how to write HTML so that I could build a website to create my own Dragon Ball Z RPG as a middle schooler. Um, And then, from beyond that, I ended up creating at one point in time a D&D website for like my campaign world at the time and everything like that. And that campaign world was garbage. It wasn't garbage. Well, no, it was. I'm a middle schooler. I don't know anything about, writing really or creating internal consistency in a world or world building. It's just an amalgamation of a whole bunch of nonsense that I thought was all super cool. But yeah, just funny story. Role-playing games are actually like what kind of got me into technology, in the first place. So I guess it kind of makes sense and is the logical evolution that now I'm sitting here doing all of this nitty-gritty stuff in Foundry. What is it, buddy? Sorry, my dog is very excited about something going on outside, but there's nothing out there. He probably just saw a squirrel. Okay, so now is when I want to make a few more additional regions visible on this layer. So yeah, I want to make this visible always. I want to make the 45-foot visible always. And now I'll go in and I'll actually do all the wall heights for all these pieces over here. This is 50. I think I've already got that turned on. So yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so yeah, we'll go through and I can't actually grab both sides of this. It's going to be a little harder to grab these ones that are so super close. I'm kind of going to have to click those one by one. But yeah, I guess all of that and even the story talking about like, you know, how young I was when I taught myself to learn HTML and all that sort of stuff is, I think somewhere along the way, you know, because it's like, you know, you start running games when you're 12. And then, you know, like I said, by the time I was in my 20s, I'd been running games for over a decade, right? And so it's like, to a certain extent, I think at some point, there was like some switch that flipped in me of like, you know, it almost, and like, I'm not upset that it happened because I actually kind of like that I feel this way about it. But to a certain extent, it does almost feel like, at a certain point, because I was, I was getting older and it was, you were, supposed to leave silly games and blah, blah, blah behind, like, especially as I was getting into like, working in the corporate world and everything like that. It was almost like I needed to be exceptional. Like I had a need to attempt to be exceptional, not being arrogant enough to call myself exceptional at running D&D games. But I had a need to chase perfection or to chase being exceptional at running D&D games after a certain point to justify even being able to do so, because it's like, okay, well, if you're going to play games, spend as much time as I do playing games and things like that at this age, which is, it's so crazy. And I'm not so like, don't hear what I'm not saying. These thoughts are not necessarily healthy. But I think that this is probably where it came from for myself. Is it was like, if I was going to play D&D at the ages, as I was growing up and getting older, and I was going to not leave those things behind, well, then I needed to be exceptional at it, and it needed to be something that I was still doing because I was good at it or something like that. It was almost like I started chasing perfection as a way to justify my continued enjoyment of the hobby, which I'm not upset that it ended up creating a need to chase perfection within D&D. It is sad that I think my story is not unique in that I think that there's a lot of people who probably give up a lot of things like, let's say, D&D, or maybe playing Magic, or, you know, or whatever the case may be, video gaming, at certain points in their life, because they think it's the thing that they're supposed to do, because it's like, those are for kids and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's just, it sucks that that piece of so many societies is there. All right, so those are all at 45. But yeah, I think that that's where a lot of my my need to be not perfect, but my need to chase perfection, because you'll never be perfect. Like nobody's perfect at anything. Not really. But that doesn't mean that we can't chase it. The question is are you chasing it? Oh, no, I did that wrong. Okay, undo. Oh, thank you. Wait, did it undo all the other walls too? No way, dude. Are you... Oh my god, Foundry. Why are you like this? Okay. Let's just create a whole cascading comedy of errors. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna do all these guys over again. Because, you know, we love that. All right. Let's see here. Ta-da. Okay. Now, let's try these other ones one more time. now we can grab these guys. Okay, and then this one is going to be 47.5. Ta-da! All right, do I have anything else selected? No, okay, cool. Right, and then this one will all be 50. Right, and then there's a couple of these little segments down here that need to fit into that 50 space also. We'll just go ahead and collect those very quickly. I think those are the only ones I have selected, which is what we want. Okay, cool. Awesome. Right, so those are in there, and then need to grab this segment. Okay. Do. All right. I think that is all of the segments that I need to grab for. Nope. Sure not. For 52.5. There we go. right. And then now I can just hit the 55s, and then we will be done with this side. Boom. All right, and then we can go ahead and do all the guys over here. And then we can finally start getting into knocking out all of our huts. Uh, uh, all right. See if we can get these guys. Yes. All right. All right. Well, so we've got all of our sort of, I'm air quoting, terrain walls lined out. So I think the next piece that I want to do is go ahead and actually line out the like the core main sort of body piece of these bushes, because I do want those to be able to create some some visual occlusion as well. That we're actually going to use the terrain walls for. But now we're pretty much done with our regions layer and needing it as much as a reference without just for anything more than just like a quick check back. So I'm going to go ahead and we will set all of these regions back to visibility only on the region layer so that way we can get a little bit of clearer picture. Okay, that's this one I just did. Yeah. Okay. So now we click back. Awesome. We should see that all those regions are gone. So now we can go back to our walls section. And now we will start working on these scrubby bushes that we have around in a few spots. Like I said, for this, I'm going to utilize the terrain walls. And this is a spot where if I were trying to do the exact details of each and every one of these bushes, I might freehand draw. If this were some type of large, like fern-like bush with more pronounced kind of like solid leaves, or like, you know, I guess less like a fern and more like we call them elephant plants here. I don't know what they get called in other parts of the world, but essentially they have giant, you know, flat broadleafs that look like, you know, look something akin to an elephant ear, hence the colloquial name for them here. You know, if it were something like that, I might try to trace those details a little more perfectly. But for this, I feel like really we can just continue to stick with this drag and drop. And then I'm just going to kind of do the central portion of these bushes, because I can kind of ad hoc just deal with the, like, if there's enough of said bush in between, you know, one target and another to provide cover, I can just handle that on the fly, and I'm not going to specifically rely on visual occlusion to, like, block lines of sight and stuff like that. But I do want the central portions of these to be dense enough, right, that they do actually block line of sight beyond them and that sort of thing. But I want people to still be able to see that this is a bush. So I'm just kind of doing the internal portion of them. And you will notice that it is overlapping my other walls. So unfortunately, whenever you have walls like this that are going to be overlapping one another, it's really just kind of comes down to preference of order of operations as how you would like to do it. I find it easier to go in and pick out these small shapes around my other outlying walls, because I'm going to have to modify the height on these as well. But if somebody finds that, you know, sometimes you might find that for you, doing these detail pieces first is actually easier, and then going back and doing all your main walls and that sort of thing. You know, so it's just, you can handle it however you see fit. There's no right or wrong way, but this is just how I like to do it. Right. Do I not? Ah, I didn't have my snap to on. Well, snap to, darn it. I was like, why aren't these pieces connecting? When I went to close them. And then with something like this, where this is kind of a cluster of them, I'll actually just go ahead and actually connect them. Because I want the, like, crossover between the bushes to also be enough to kind of block line of sight, right? And then once I've done that, I can actually come in and remove the internal piece. Because I want this to sort of act like one bush clump, if you will. And essentially the way terrain walls work is for every, like, 2 segments that somebody's looking through, that's where it's going to block line of sight. So by removing these middle pieces, it's just going to keep it from looking as wonky, and it's going to kind of treat this all as one contiguous mass. That blocks line of sight across only, like, certain portions of paths. I do think I'm gonna, like, kind of expand this piece out a little bit, because I feel like I maybe cut this in a little too much here. So yeah, like that. Cool. Oh. Boom. Boom. Yeah, I did not want to draw a line across the world. That is the only downside if you have the connect snap to point, and you, because whenever we're doing this, like, drag and drop points, you're having to hold down control. If you have this snap to closest wall point enabled and you hold control before you put down your first point, it will shoot wherever, like, you're at off of the last point you previously dropped. So you just have to make sure that you start without control clicked and then click control to prevent it from doing so. Unless you are specifically mousing over another point. So like I was there. So I moused over this, then I hit control, and then it automatically knows to drag off this point. But if I were to now, as an example, hold control and then click here, it would just shoot off of the last point that I dropped, like, way up there. Okay. Are there any more of these bushes that I need to take care of? Ah, this guy back here. I don't know that this will ever even come into play, but just in case. All right. And then we've got these bushes here. I'm going to wait to do these until I actually have this, like, huts template pieces dropped. Now, the nice part about this map is there aren't going to be places where people are going to be walking underneath the huts except for here. So I'm not going to have to do nearly as many layers, meaning I'm not going to have to create, like, both a floor tile and a ceiling tile for each one of these, which I'm very happy about. I like that. Although I suppose I could do them for, well, not, yeah, I suppose I could do them for this one connects to the hillside, so that kind of makes sense. This one can just be lower, but the, all right, let me click off of here and see. Right, so this torch sconce clearly comes off of this and goes over. So yeah, I guess this one is above and even with the, like, the ridge line here. So yeah, so then it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 that I actually create as elevated, where the entrances are at that higher level. And then everything else, the entrance will just be on the same level as that actually. And I'm colloquially using level, not proper level within Foundry, so not this, same height. That's what I should be saying. At the same height. Because that is the appropriate terminology for what I'm talking about. All right, so now we'll go in, we'll go back to walls, we'll set the height of our bushes. So let me check out the region map. So yeah, everything up there on those hills is at 55, so... Okay, yeah, and then I'm just going to deselect these pieces. Yeah. All right, any other... Yep, these ones down here. Right, and then I don't want these bushes to be super tall, so they're all coming off of a 55-foot rise, right? I just want them to be representatory of about 5 feet in height, right? So basically, I want them big enough that if somebody's standing behind them, they're going to get some cover from it, but also, you know, somebody could duck behind it, right? To actively, like, take them out of line of sight. So here we will just do these at 60. So I will apply that. Now I've noticed something, and I don't know if it looks like maybe I just didn't come in and select these walls when I was doing everything at 55 feet, but I'm gonna, these ones on this rise over here are still at 40 to 90. This is another reason why, so you can actually turn off the setting that shows you the wall heights, like on the wall segments here, like that. But I personally want that because had it not been for that, I would not have noticed that I missed those walls, I guess. I feel like I remember selecting them, but, you know, I was also off on weird tangent stories about being old and the internet's days of yore, so I very well may have errantly missed them as I was waxing poetic about dial-up modems. Not actually waxing poetic about dial-up modems, but that was the day and age of the internet that I initially grew up in. Okay. Cool, cool. So now we can Shift E. We want to make all these 55 at their top. Cool. All right. So that's fixed. We've got our bushes on the rise here, all taken care of. Are there any others that are lower? Oh, I suppose there's this one over here that I never actually put a wall on, huh? Would be nice. So we'll go ahead and click over to that. All right, and actually, before I start selecting that, let me look at my region map. So that is chilling at 47. So a 5-foot rise off that is going to make this bush 52.5 feet in height. So I can also take my 55-foot layer, put that back on the region only. And then we'll come back to wall controls here, and we'll snatch up this bush. Ah, and I have these over here that I didn't do. Okay. So we'll get to that in a minute. Actually, you know what? Because I'm about to do all of these ones over here, I should go ahead and draw these so that I can just do the heights for all of these at the same time. And again, these look pretty contiguous, like this kind of mass here and this mass back here. So I'm going to do each of those as one sort of... Okay. Now we can grab these guys. Right, and then these ones are at a 50-foot elevation, so we'll make these guys 55. Again, will those ones back there come into play? Probably not, ever. Literally, probably never, but we're doing it anyway. Just in case. Okay. So now is when I need to start getting into doing these huts, which I won't lie, I've been avoiding up until this point. But that's all right. We've got to get started at some point. So I'm actually going to go down to my lower layer and I am going to go to my tile layer, and we've already actually created the appropriate size tile, right? So no reason to remake the wheel. Now what I will need to do here, so that I can make sure that these are all lined up properly, kind of like I did the first time, is I'm going to make this visible again, right? Just so that I can drop this on. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do all of the huts that don't have, that I'm not going to need to do a floor for first. The ones that I just need to do like the roof section for. And then I will go back and I will do the ones that have the floor piece as well. So now I can just pop this guy in place. Okay. And then this is going to be one of the problem children. So does this need to be at 40? Nope. Does this need to be at 350? I think is probably the angle. Yep. Actually, I almost feel like it needs like 2 more degrees of turn. Nope, too much. 1 more degree of turn. 351, is that the answer here? 351 is the answer. All right. All right. By the way, just because I haven't mentioned it before, if you were here yesterday, you would have already heard me talk about it, but all the maps that I utilize for my D&D games and the maps that I'm utilizing for all of these, all the scenes in this campaign do come from Seafoot Games. They are in no way, shape, or form a sponsor, but I just think that they are... Luke, the guy who does all their maps, he's a really cool guy, and they're really cool people over there, so... I'd just like to give them some props. So seafootgames.com, and you can find them as Seafoot Games on Patreon if you want to check out more of the stuff they offer. They literally have thousands and thousands and thousands of maps, and their Patreon gets you hundreds of maps a month for like $5. So it's a pretty awesome deal, and I've been using them exclusively for at least the last 5 or 6 years now. So I will include a link down in the description if you are watching this on YouTube later on, or you're watching the VOD of this. I will include links to both their Patreon and website there. So if you want to check out Seafoot Games, I highly encourage it. Okay, so we're going to make these huts 10 feet taller than the actual space here. So in that case, because all of these huts are the same height, I can actually, I should be able to, yeah. So we can just shift grab these guys, and then we can wiki mass edit this to 60, and then the levels, top height elevation to 60, apply. Ta-da, we like it. Right, and then same thing here. We're going to 60. I forgot to do the top height at 60. And now, let's see if I can do this, because this would be cool if I could do this with Wikimass Edit. If I go into all of them, and then I Shift E, and then Appearance, and I set tile opacity to 0, apply. Ba-ba! I don't know why I put us back in the lower level. Let's go back to the upper. What even just happened? Okay, I'm very, oh, no. Okay. No. Come on. Please don't tell me I just did what I think I did. Oh, goodness. Okay. I thought I literally just deleted like an entire layer of the map. It's unfortunately easier to do things like that in Foundry than you would expect, or that it should be. That's the best way that I can put that. And yeah, so I forget, because I am essentially working with, that is the unfortunate nature when you do multi-leveled maps like this, and you're working with, like, this entire piece, right? Like, this entire level of the map is essentially just a tile set over the rest of the map at a specific height, right? So the downside of that is that it can be interacted with like a tile. So if you are doing things like I'm doing now, right, which is going in and using a bunch of tiles to essentially create faux roofs for all these huts so that I can make these huts something that people can walk into, but still have someone over the top of and actually block line of sight between the two. The unfortunate situation it creates is if you accidentally click on your tile layer and then you go into Wiki Mass Edit and you do anything with that there, then it does the same thing to this, which now makes me wonder, where did I, yeah, that was, okay, so no, we want this at 90 and we do want this at 40. Yeah, because that would have also, because it reset the height parameters on this whole level of the map, essentially. Hello, Neko! Welcome to the stream! How are you doing today? For those who don't already know, Neko is my amazing partner. He's a rock star, and he plays in the multiplayer Baldur's Gate game that we do here on the channel here on Mondays. We have a lot of crazy modded fun. So, we're playing, Neko and I are definitely BG3 veterans. I believe he's over 1,000 hours. I'm somewhere around like 1,800 at this point. But the two of the friends that we're playing with, on Mondays have never actually fully beat the game before, and we're doing a very heavily modded playthrough. So just so that way it can be different from their own like single player playthroughs. Just because they want it to sort of be a little bit of a guided tour, if you will. We are playing on honor mode, and we are playing with just about every difficulty increasing mod that you can slap onto Baldur's Gate. And so far it has been fun. All right. So, what were we doing? We're playing with tiles. All right. So we're gonna. Right, and I'm gonna once again, I'm gonna make this visible so that I can properly lay this where I want it. Oh, right. Haha. I forget I need to copy the visible one if I want to lay down more visible ones. Okay. All right, and then let me make sure I don't have, yeah, okay, cool. And then we can mass edit this to top height 55, because these are both sitting on our 45-foot level, or 45-foot elevation. And then I can also go ahead and just bam. Oh, I just double clicked instead of doing the actual mass edit. Okay, fine. Ta-da. Now they're both invisible. Right. And then this one looks like it's the one that's at reverse angle, so that means it's like 356. Yeah, okay, cool. And so now we're doing all the ones at this height. Nope. I'm just gonna go ahead and oh, it's so close, but it's not quite there. We'll add another 3 degrees. We'll see what that looks like. 18 is the winner. Okay, let's 356. No. Oh, this one's just 4. Cool. There we go. Oh my god, one of the few times where I was actually just able to set that at like one of the normal rotation angles. We love to see it. All right. So then this guy's going to be 4, and then I'll go here. Cool. Right. And then I do not have my main actual map layer selected, or map tile. So I can go ahead, select all these guys, and then we'll mass edit. And then elevation is going to be, they are sitting on a 55-foot rise, so 65. Here we want 65. Then we can go ahead and oh man. Okay. I literally made sure that it wasn't selected. But I guess not. Okay, let's select that. Cool. The map tile is not selected yet again. Let's select these once more with feeling. Oh, this one somehow was properly selected. Okay. Alright, sometimes it just feels like Foundry actively likes to troll me. I'm sure lots of people who work with Foundry probably feel that same way. Ta-da! Now it did the thing that we wanted. How appropriate. The name of this song is actually called Map Change. For those of you listening later, you will you will not hear that piece of it because that is something that is only part of the live actual broadcast. But if you want to hang out, jam to some tunes, and you know, do some maps with us, then join us live on Twitch next time. Where? Oh, no. Oh, man. This really is just like kind of turning into a comedy of errors at this point. That's really, really unfortunate. Okay, let's... I think this just needs to be here. I think this just needs to be here. Make sure that we don't have any seams around the outside and that that's back in the appropriate place. Right. So I now have to play Find the Tile. Because it pasted 5 of these invisible ones. And I'm not sure where those are. But if I try to click drag, it is just going to move the tile layer that is this entire map. Like this entire layer of the map. So unfortunately, it means literally just kind of having to mouse around until I see the outlines of the tiles pop up. Like that, like this guy here. The downside is I can't even just go off of... This is one of the perils of creating maps in this fashion. I still love it. I still wouldn't do it any other way. I really like the way that these multi-level scenes like come together when you're actually playing. But it does unfortunately create the situation where like it becomes more and more increasingly complex to work with. The more you add and the more that you do, right? So okay. I don't know that we've hunted down all of them, but if we see any weird sightline aberrations, when I'm actually running this game and when we're on the map, I will know what they're coming from, and I will very quickly be able to delete them. So, the thing that I actually intended to do here was just copy this guy, and then we're going to make you visible. And then for this, we're going to follow the same process that we did to create the multi-layered ones before, the ones that had both a floor and a ceiling. So first, I'm going to, of course, make sure that tile's in there at the right angle that I want for the spot. Right, ta-da. And then I'm going to make an exact duplicate of it. Right? Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to set the height of this. So this level here that this is like coming off of, so this is 55 feet, right, is the height of this walkway, which is actually what I want this even with. So I'm going to set this one to 55 feet in height because this is essentially going to represent the floor on this hut. Kind of going through all of this step by step again in case somebody, you know, watches this that didn't see the previous one yesterday where we were doing lots of this. So then I can come in and go ahead and make this invisible. I do want to have this open, though, because its positioning is going to be very important, because I want to be able to make sure everything lines up properly. I want to be able to pixel perfect this tile over the top of this tile, which will then, this will act as the roof for this particular one. So now I can open up this tile. Height-wise, I know that this is going to be 65 and 65, because it's 10 feet off of this walkway here. And then I will make sure to move it into its proper position, just using our pixel coordinates. Boom. So I now know that this is 1-for-1 over the other tile that I have there. And so now I can go ahead and make it invisible. So even though that the tile is invisible, the game will still treat it as though it blocks line of sight between it. So now I have the ability to have a token technically below this building, inside this building, and over the roof, and it will actively block the sight lines between all of those for those people, which is the goal that I was going for with those. And then soon we'll be going back around and we'll be putting like all the walls on these huts and stuff. But for here, we're going to go ahead and... I'm not sure why this one's invisible when I'm working with a copy of a tile that hadn't been. Here we go. Oh, man. Okay. So let me undo my mistake there. All right, there we go. This is now open strictly as a reference. This is where we are changing the height of this tile to 65. 65. All right. And now we make you invisible. Ta-da! All right. All right, so now we will go ahead and go and now that we've done all of these square huts, right, to start, floors and ceilings and everything, we will now go ahead. Yeah, I'm just quickly double checking to make sure I did in fact get them all. Looks like we did. So now we'll go ahead and we'll work on putting in our walls for these guys. So following the same process that we did yesterday, we're going to use our drawing tool because this is going to let us create a pixel perfect representation of the size of the tile that we're working with here. So now is when I'll need to go back to the tile controls. I'm going to keep this open as a reference because I'm going to need these dimensions, right? Now, so clearly I didn't make this a perfect square. That's okay. As long as this matches this, that's really all that matters. So now I can come into my drawing tool, select this guy, and then I can just adjust the width and height manually, right? Now that I've just drawn a square. Ta-da! So now I have the appropriate size to overlay over my other. So now what I'll do here is I'm going to copy, right, this drawing. So now that I can just work with this as a template as I go around and do this with each of the different huts. And so kind of the same way that we did before, right? I'm going to come in and I'm going to pixel perfect it into place, right? Boom. And then the other thing that I want to create the pixel perfect match of is the rotation angle. So ta-da. So now I know that this drawing is perfectly lined up with the lines of the tile that we have over here, which is essentially creating now, even though we don't see it yet, eventually after we do all these drawings on all these different huts, what I will do is we'll convert those to walls, and then setting the wall parameters in the correct range is essentially just going to turn each one of these huts into a, you know, a 2D, 3D box, if you will. Where for sightline purposes and everything like that, the game's map is going to treat it as though it is a 3D box object, even though we're still using a 2D top-down map, right? So that's the whole goal of all these guys. All right. I actually did not mean to copy that one, but that's fine. We can work with that. So now the process for this is just going to be the same each time. I'll come to the tile controls. I'll open this up so that I can open this up. Nope. Oh, wait, is there a tile here? Oh, no, yeah, that's the big guy. I don't want to grab that. Don't want to play with that. No, thank you. Nope, I just want this. Yep, drawing tool, please. Thank you. All right. And then so here, again, now I will just make sure that everything matches. Rotation angle is already correct. So literally with this one, all I have to do is just pixel drop it. Boom. Yeah, I suppose I can do the other ones up here. Okay. Right. Okay, and 15. Right. And then we want 63, 60. Oh, I had already accidentally put it in the right spot. Interesting. All right. Sometimes that happens. And then you retype the number anyway, you know. All right. So now we've got all of those guys done. We'll keep going over here now. So I essentially want to get all of these done, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to convert them all into walls at once, and then I'll go around and set the appropriate heights for them. So. Ooh, nope. and then here. Ta-da. All right. So we now have all of our walls in place as we wish, or not walls, but all of our drawings in place as we wish. So now I'm going to come back in here to our drawing layer. And just like we did yesterday when we did a big batch of these kind of all at once, I'm just going to click drag. I'm going to grab everything, right? I can see they're all selected and then be a wall. Ta-da. And now they're all walls. And so now I just get to go around and adjust the heights, which is the easy part. So we'll just make sure we've got our selector tool here and we'll just start grabbing walls. Now with something like this, you can see I drew the wall, like it puts the wall outside the bounds. That actually doesn't matter. Now I don't need it there by any means, right? It literally just does nothing. So long as it's outside this outer like scene boundary wall, it's literally just going to do nothing. It's kind of just erroneous information that the game is just going to omit and not really like do anything with from a player's standpoint. It's okay to leave it there. Walls use up so little of the like processing power of whatchamacallit, of like, you know, Foundry for people, and especially it uses up so little bandwidth when your players are connecting to your instance, that having like those extra walls there are really not going to be a big deal. The things that chew up bandwidth that you have to worry about is the interaction between like walls and lighting effects and things like that. Sometimes the more VFX you put in, the more bandwidth it's going to choke up for yourself and for your players. So that's also something to consider. And it is the unfortunate nature of with the way that I run my games, it does actually create a situation where essentially I do have to make sure that I have players that have the appropriate bandwidth to be able to handle everything that I set up in Foundry. You know, not saying that there's anything wrong with having any internet connection, but unfortunately, I have attempted to run games in Foundry the way that I like to run them and the way that I feel they should be run, so to speak. And in those situations, unfortunately, if somebody doesn't have a certain bandwidth, it can be very, very rough for them. Now, sometimes you get players that like kind of understand that and they're willing to just like kind of consistently refresh their instance. And you know, they're willing to kind of deal with that on their end. But it really all depends on the player. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be pretty bandwidth intensive. And some of the things that I design in Foundry and going into this level of detail do consider that, right? Is that it is going to potentially create some bandwidth clogs for some of your players. Now, we're not doing anything like hyper intensive. Now you can do things with Foundry where you have fully animated scenes and the whole thing's animated. And those tend to be the ones that really choke up bandwidth. But essentially we're just playing with the very rudimentary sort of AKA physics engine, for lack of a better term, that Foundry kind of has built into it. And that really is not that super intensive, but just keep in mind, the more you have going on, the more it will use, right? Because this is going to be a situation where all your players are connecting to it remotely. And if you, as the DM, don't have a good upload speed, then it's going to create a lot of issues for your players as well if you're trying to run your Foundry instance locally. I'm lucky that, I've had fiber internet for quite some time, but there are lots of parts of the world where fiber internet is not an option. And there's a lot of people where even if it is an option, it might not be financially feasible, right? And so that doesn't mean that Foundry can't still work for you, but I probably would look into either setting up your own free remote Oracle server, which is a very difficult process, and I won't pretend that it's not. That is going to be your cheapest option if you're looking for remote hosting. But the Foundry is a website that offers, the Forge is a website that offers Foundry remote instance hosting, and their plans are pretty reasonable price-wise. Depending on how intensive you're trying to go with things in your scenes, right? But if you're just looking to utilize Foundry for its auto-rolling capabilities and things like that, and just some basic walls, I mean, you can get a super, super cheap Forge instanced version of Foundry that will work properly for you without problem. So just keep in mind those kind of different factors. Also when we're talking about going this in depth with scene building, I know I've got the upload speed to handle it, so I'm willing to do it. If you don't, then you might want to either look into a remote hosting option or just decide that what level of detail you can live with. It's maybe a little bit less, that's going to allow for a more streamlined, because all of the things that we're doing to create immersion are kind of immediately destroyed if all of your players are constantly just having to deal with like loading options and things not loading properly and assets not showing up and that sort of deal. So all right, so we've got all of those selected. So these are all of the huts. I specifically omitted these two down here, right? And we haven't touched these ones over here because those are at a different height. So these are all my huts that are chilling out at the 55-foot level. So I do actually, now that I think about it, need to deselect these because none of these over here actually need a floor parameter, but these two do. So let me quickly unselect these walls. All right, cool. So now we'll mass edit, and these guys are all chilling, like I said, at 55 feet. And we know that we want these to be 10 feet tall, so the top of these walls goes to 65. Apply. Ta-da. Those huts are now all done in one big mass edit, other than going in and putting in the detail pieces of like doors and windows and things like that. And we will get to those shortly. But for now, that's done. So next up, we'll start grabbing the other ones. So we know that these two down here are sitting at the 45-foot elevation, don't need a floor, right? Because they're actually sitting on the ground at that elevation. So we can go ahead and very quickly do those two. I don't believe I have any erroneous ones. Yep, edit 4. So that's another way. I mean, this is a thing that is not always part of my process, but because sometimes I try to go too fast for my own good is really what it comes down to. But this is why Wiki Mass Edit is great, because it will give you an item count of all the items that you have selected. So before, when I had accidentally like changed this whole like tile that is acting as our upper layer of our map, and made it opaque and changed its like height and all that sort of stuff, if I had paid attention to the fact that I had an extra tile selected up here, it would have immediately told me that, I was potentially going to create an issue for myself there. But much like Alice in Wonderland, I give myself such very good advice. Rarely ever follow it. All right, so that unselects those walls up there. And then these we're going to set top and bottom heights for. So these we know that we want the bottom to start at 55. and we want the top to be at 65, and this is specifically so because I want these huts to be essentially like the ones that are attached to this like raised walkway up here. I want them to be like almost like they're built on like stilts. So I want the ability for tokens to be able to move underneath them, and I also want sightlines to be able to go through underneath them. So that's why we're creating both a top and bottom there. So these are the ones where with the tiles and the walls, we've literally created essentially a 3D, 2D cube. Our tile at 55 feet is acting as the bottom of the cube. The tile at 65 feet is acting at the top of the cube, and then our 4 walls here are the other 4 sides of the cube as well. So we don't see that, right? Because we're working with the 2D image, but from a like processing sightline standpoint, that's how Foundry's actually treating it, because there is essentially a 3D canvas operating in the background that you're just stuck in a permanent top-down view of with Foundry and using the like levels and wall heights module. What did I not do over here? Oh, did I not put in anything over here? Okay, we have a top here. Oh, I just decided not to put walls on that guy. All right, well, let's rectify that. Okay, no idea why it didn't actually move this where I asked it to, but at least the other pieces happened. Nope. 3 and 4. Boom. All right, cool. And then we'll go ahead and just, you're a wall. Okay, and then here we just need to worry about the top, so there we go. I don't still have this selected, do I? I do. That would have been bad. Not really terrible, but just for the sake of not redoing things over and over. All right, and then these guys will just... don't need bottoms, we just need tops. That statement taken out of context. Anyway, I wonder if I went back and watched, sorry, that's just like giving me a funny thought. I wonder how much incidental innuendo comes out of my mouth during these streams if I went back and actually like really watched all my VODs. I watch a lot of my VODs that are gaming, mostly because, especially if it's anything like more skill-based gaming, right? Like when I was playing Battlefield at the very start of this channel, I definitely went back and watched a lot of that. I was also doing some Battlefield videos and editing together footage and things like that, which forced me to watch a lot of my own like gameplay. But from that, I just feel like it's useful, right? You can figure out what you can learn, and you can always take something from that. All right. But I don't ever really go back and watch these. I'm just like, it's in the can, it is what it is, it's going to be what it's going to be, and just let it be that, basically. All right, so same thing with these other huts, right? That these longer ones, we already essentially have this tile already established. So we can just copy it, we can go back to the top portion, and then we can just start slapping these bad boys down. Now, these ones here, similar to these two, are going to have both a floor and a ceiling, as opposed to just necessitating a ceiling. So I'm going to save these two for last, since I have to do that extra layer with those. So I'll just go around and do the other ones, which it looks like there's only... Okay, cool. There's just a few. So, but we'll go ahead and handle that and get those guys in place. Cool. And then again, for the purposes of this, I am going to go ahead and make this tile visible, just so that I can go ahead and get them all lined up properly, before I then go in and change the opacity back. And then I need to grab the now visible tile. If I remember correctly, these ones played nice. Yeah, for the most part. Oh, yeah, it does look like it's off by maybe a degree. Let's see, what does 301 look like? Nope, it's off by like 2 degrees the other way. So this is essentially, what, 298? Yeah, of course it is, because, you know, why wouldn't it be? And actually, is it 297? Is that actually? Ah, there it is. That's the one. Okay. Ah, see, here's another one of those errant tiles that we knew we copied and pasted before. It's like, where's Waldo? We found it. What's the prize that you get? No, people don't... Your players won't realize that you're a fraud. No, I'm just kidding. That was a comment strictly to me, by the way. That was a me talking to me moment. None of what I am doing right now is necessary to run a quality D&D game for your players. So please, don't ever feel like if you're not doing this sort of stuff, that somehow you're not providing a good experience for your players. That is not true. Those two things are not mutually exclusive in any way, shape, or form. I just love this level of detail, and so I do it. I've said that lots of times in these videos, but I do feel like it's a thing that I almost want to neurotically reiterate, because I do feel like there's a lot of people out there that like look at people like myself doing stuff like this, you know, to set up for their D&D games, and they just like run screaming at the thought of ever being a DM. And it's like, no, you don't have to do any of this. Like, if you could just go use Owlbear Rodeo. You can literally just throw down a map. You can slap tokens on. It's super easy to use. It's got Dice Roller in there. Does it have all the integrated, I target this thing and it automatically checks the AC and all that? No, it doesn't, but you don't need that. I'm just a uber nerd, and so like I want all this nitty gritty like detail schlocked in all my games, because I like the way, like, this is the thing that I would love to engage with as a player, so I want to do that for my players. But none of this stuff is necessary. I have been in amazing D&D games that had none of this as a player. Not many, because I just haven't played in many D&D games. I've DM'd most of them. But part of me doing things like this is also just the, like, kind of like I said before, it's the chasing perfection. I constantly want to up the ante, as it were, for what I do in these scenes. and how I design the scenes that I create. So there you go. Rant done. Why is it? No, don't click that. Well, I don't understand why it keeps selecting that. Why? Yeah, why now? Why? Why? Is it, what? This tile is very clearly above this map tile. Like, I don't understand why when I click this, it selects the map tile as well. That is becoming really bothersome, actually. Because that's just not a behavior it should be exhibiting. Even now, like I have not right-clicked at all, and it completely deselected the other tiles. And then selected the map tile again. I don't understand. Yeah, see, I'm just... Oh my goodness. Okay, actually, before I do this, I do need to... No, this one I know. I'm pretty sure this is at a different elevation than these other ones, so these three are all the same. So we can wiki mass edit these together. I only have 3 selected, thankfully. And yeah, so these ones are at 55, which means we want them at 65. And there's no floors to worry about, so we're just setting top and bottom height. And then I can go ahead and make the appearance invisible. Boom. Right, and I'm just going to double check. Okay, yep, all of my parameters are good there. So I'm going to very quickly, with these other two, I'm going to click over to my region map so that I can double check heights on where these two are sitting. Yes, regions. Sorry, I was very clearly in need of more caffeine. I can feel myself drifting. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, let's filter out all the elevations below 40 real quick. Okay, so this one is chilling at 40, so these two are at different heights from one another. Okay, so this is why I double-checked this, because I want each of these tiles, before I make them invisible, to sit at, you know, the 10-foot rise from wherever it sits, since this will act as the ceiling, right, for these huts. So from there, I'm going to now know that this is 55, so this will need to be 60. This one's 47, so this will need to be 57.5. 57.5 is the harder number to remember. It's not that it's hard to remember, but, you know, certainly the more precise. So I'm going to go ahead and go in and do that one first, and then I'll set its opacity. Ta-da! We've got a ceiling, and then this one I know I want to chill at 60. So we'll come in here, and 60, and voila. All right. So now we're on our tiles control. So I'm going to come over here, and then this is when I'll go ahead and do, I'll go ahead and make this one visible, and then we'll very quickly put it on our clipboard again. I'm going to put these two in place. Okay. Thanks, Foundry. Oh, no. Okay. Yep. Thanks, Foundry. All right. Thankfully, I remember that this is 23, I'm pretty sure, by 15. No, I don't want the dimensions. Okay, no. Okay. Update tile. Okay. Yeah, 40, 90, appearance. We have that. Position. I don't get what's happening. Okay. So this problem is actually fairly easily solvable. It's annoying, but it's easily solvable. It's just one of the little pieces of Foundry that sometimes makes me want to break my brain. Okay. Or that breaks my brain, I should say. So I want my maps folder. No, I don't want in there. Go back. And then I want desert, settlements. And this is my upper portion. Bam. Nope. And we're just going to drag and drop that right there. And then believe this one should be 1500. We'll see if we've got any weird seams. No, we don't. Okay, perfect. So this is back where we want it. And at the height ranges that we want it. Okay, cool. Awesome. So we have, now we're going to, boom, because we want this to be the lowest thing in the tile layer on this map. And now we have corrected the problem. All right. So back to this now. And we are setting the floors. Did I set this at the appropriate height? Yep. Okay, I just didn't ever do the opacity. There we go. All right. Just because that's also how I'm kind of like visually letting myself know which pieces of this I'm still working on and which pieces of this I'm not. So, okay. So, hiya. All right, cool. So I've got my extras there. So we'll start with these as the floors. So 55. Boom. And then I want to have this as a reference. Right, so this is going to be my roof. So I'm going to set this at 65. And then positioning, I'm going to do matching. Right, so bam. Now I can go ahead. Right, and then here we go. So we can put this over here as a reference, and then right, and then we can make that invisible. Because I didn't do this one first, which is fine. Bam. There we go. Ta-da. All right, so now we've got our floors and ceilings in place. So, next up, more walls. All right. So I'm just going to pop this guy open as a reference, right? And then we're going to come back here to our drawing tool. Ta-da. And then dimensions. We want 436 by 273. Boom. Okay, now we've got the right shape. So... Right, and then we'll go ahead and make that. Okay. Then... can... And then this one's at 270. So, boom. Okay. Cool. Right. 75. And then what's our angle here? 297. Of course it was 297. Ta-da. I don't know why I actually, I find it oddly satisfying, like, just watching the drawings, like, snap into place. Weird. And ta-da. And then we'll go ahead, snap this last one into place, and then we can make them all walls. This one's at 270. Ta-da. All right. Okay. Now we have all those down. Oh, we do have another one over here that I guess we didn't mess with. So let's just go ahead and very quickly, we'll grab this. Because, yeah, we don't have anything over there. We will. This one just needs a ceiling, thankfully. So, we'll go ahead. This height over here is 50 feet, so I know that this one's going to be 60. That I just remember from other portions of the map, so no need to refer back to our region's level to check height there. And then we can go ahead, make you invisible. Then we can also come over here, grab our drawing. And then we want this back open as a reference. And then drawing settings. We will... And then 90. Ta-da! All right. So now we can come back to our walls tool. We can click drag, select all of... oh no, we're not doing walls. We want drawings. Haha. That would have been very bad. Okay. So yes, now we've got all of our drawings selected, and now we will tell them to be walls. Awesome. All right, so now we can go ahead, start setting the heights on our walls, and go from there. So... Right, so I want to do all the ones that I know are currently sitting at, like huts that are on the 55-foot height, like spot. These two are going to be at 50-foot height for their floors, right? But because we're going to give these ones both floors and ceilings, is why I'm going to come do these later, because I'll need to set both top and bottom heights on these, whereas these other ones I only need to set top heights on, so... All right, and then I remember that this one was at 47.5, so that means the height on this one needs to be 57.5. This one was at 50. So it needs to be 60, and then the one over here is actually at 50, so it needs to be 60 as well, so we can go ahead and grab that, do that at the same time. So top height 60, bam. Okay, so that takes care of all of those. So we just have these two left. All right, so we will just go ahead here. We can mass edit these two. Uh, 55 for the bottom and 65 for the top. All right. So that's all taken care of now. So we've gotten all of those walls lined out. We are getting close to our stopping time. So I think the next part that I will work on is just going ahead and starting to do some of the detail pieces of the different walls that are on these huts, right? Putting in doors, windows, etc., things like that. So we'll go ahead and get started on that process. So anytime that I've got one of these that has oh, nope, I'm gonna undo that. That has a like torch on one side of it. I kind of want the torch near the doorway, just because I feel like that's the thing that makes the most sense, right? Because where would you want light most around your home? Like people that are actually approaching its entrance. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and treat all of them as such. Okay. Nope, that's the wrong segment. That's the segment I want. There we go. Right, so it's a door. Yeah, we're going to put the door here on this one. And on some of these, I'm making the door bigger than it needs to be, right? Again, I mentioned this yesterday because I don't want to have situations where, like, it's really difficult for tokens to be able to move in and out of these, right? I don't want a bunch of headaches for my players trying to do that. So by having it a little bit bigger, it's just going to make it a little easier for a token to move in and out of the area when the door is open. Now, it does technically mean it's creating more of a sightline than maybe it should, but with all of these, they're not meant to be as like hard and fast doors as like, for example, the doors on this temple over here, right? Whereas like the doors on this temple are specifically meant to be like doors, whereas like the doors, air quoting, that I'm putting on these huts is mostly just meant to represent like an opening with like some kind of curtain or something like that drawn in the way. So the size of those entrances could vary pretty greatly, right, between one hut and another. This is meant to have that sort of makeshift, sort of shanty town refugee-esque kind of feel, even though it is going to be a town of vampires. Or dampiers, I should say. They are, in fact, refugees from the very force that the PCs are actually going to be, be the PC's primary antagonist throughout the course of the campaign. So that's why I kind of mentioned it before. One of the early ones when I was doing this is... So this whole place is kind of going to be optional. So it's like, does the party even discover that this place exists? Beyond that, it will also be a town that, you know, they're dampiers. Essentially, they have humans here, or they have other humanoids here that are not dampiers, that are essentially being used to a certain extent as cattle. And so it's the thing of like, these dampiers are actively against the same enemy that the PCs are going to be against. However, they are actively committing atrocities to perpetuate and, to provide their own existence here. So it's what are the PCs going to choose? Are they going to choose to allow them to continue and try to utilize them as allies against the greater, air quotes, enemy, right? Or do they decide that this can't continue, try to stop them? Do they try to negotiate some other way for these Dhampir to live? So it's like all the interesting implications that can come along from someplace like this. And then also, as I mentioned before, it'll also allow them to, so in this world, there are the old gods or the true gods, right? That are actually the only real gods of this world. There are lots of religions in this campaign setting, but there are only a few true gods, even though there are numerous deities worshipped throughout the world. However, all deities that aren't the true gods in this world are actually just the true gods taking on different forms to allow themselves to be more easily worshipped or more easily accepted by certain cultures. And the true gods of this campaign setting are also, by nature, to a certain extent, even the most benign or the most righteous, right, are also somewhat malevolent in a way, in that they have their agendas that have nothing to do with mortal life, right? And mortals are just a means to their ends, as far as they see it. Think of the deities of this world, or the true gods, as very much, I wanted them to have a very sort of Lovecraftian, eldritch horror-y type of feel to them. And there are lots of other deities in this campaign setting as well, but they're all actually just facades. So this will actually allow them to interact with potentially followers of one of the true gods, because most people in this world don't actually worship the true gods. Most of them belong to some type of religion, if they're religious at all, right? Because the true gods also remain fairly hidden from the rest of the world. And so all these different cultures have is the aspects of these true gods that they've been shown. And so very few of them worship the true gods in their true form, I should say. Even though they are in fact worshiping them, they're worshiping them in a totally different form. Right, so we've got those. Now I'm going to go around and I'm going to put some windows on some of these guys. And then, unfortunately, all the new segments that we're drawing, and even these ones that were click creating in here, they are resetting the height to the original parameters. But I'm going to then come back afterwards and I'll just batch flip them all back to the appropriate height. But having the original walls there at the appropriate height already is offering me a point of reference from which to do so. And then I'm choosing to use invisible walls for the windows, air quotes, on these huts, because I want these huts, windows, air quotes, to be more just like holes in the side of them, more so than I am attempting to actually make them, like windows with like glass panes in them. Nope, that's not what I clicked. That's it. It's... And yeah, I'm specifically like not making the huts like and where windows are and things like that uniform, so that it creates as many sort of varied and differing sight lines as possible. Because keep in mind, this whole campaign is going to be used to playtest my FPS 5e supplement rules that I'm going to be releasing later this year. And so the intention of those is to create a more visceral, quasi-FPS-like experience in D&D, right, when it comes to firearms, just because I find the normal firearms rules a little lacking, to say the least. And so I want... the intention is to create something that actually allows them to feel different, to feel like you're not just using another one of the just some other ranged weapon that works essentially no different than, a bow or something like that, other than its damage dice, right? And so having all these varied sightlines, there's going to be a lot more ranged combat in general in this campaign. And so that's a big part of why I'm creating so many like varied and broken up sightlines, and a big part of why I'm trying to be very heavily detail oriented with all of those factors, because I want that to add to that experience. I want somebody to feel like they can take cover, but inside one of these buildings or behind a window. I want things like cover to be far more important, because firearms are going to be much more lethal in this than they normally are in typical D&D. So okay. Okay. Right. And we're almost done with these guys, and I think that that is where we're going to wrap up for today once I've finished putting in these windows on these guys. And then we are going to raid over to a very good friend of mine, 666 Red Dog. I was actually talking about her campaign earlier on in the stream that she is currently working on, but I believe that they are playing Kaus's campaign today. Also with my buddy Hobo. So some cool cats and definitely worth checking out. So we're going to finish up this last little window here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it there for now. And I will go back in and I will finish readjusting the height on all these like window segments and everything that I have entered into these buildings after the fact. And then we will get back to this next week with, we've got all of our walls in place on all levels. We've got all of our height controls or our movement controls for controlling our height as we transition between one level and another throughout the whole thing. So the next part that we will get into is doing our VFX, and then we will go in and add our finishing touches to this scene as well. And then we will have another one of these bad boys in the can and be one step closer to being able to start our playtest. So I'm going to go ahead and kick these ads to the curb that are about to play. And let us go ahead and pull up all right, friends. So we are going to go ahead and raid over to 666 Red Dog. Give her a follow once we get there. She is awesome. Honestly, this channel would not exist if it wasn't for people like her, people like Kaus, people like Hobo that are all in this game. So we are going to roll on in. All right, guys.